Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a model showcase video for this 1/8-ish scale World War II Bantam pattern Jeep trailer. Now the model in this video is built for my own personal collection and is not for sale and or purchase. However, like I often mention in these model showcase videos, I often take on commission builds from projects ranging from 1/35 scale all the way up to 1/6 scale. As for availability and pricing information, this would be best by contacting me through the email address listed below, which is info@eastcoastarmory.com. Now this model here is a little bit different compared to my usual subject matter, of course being the scale. I don't typically work in these weird off scales, but this model here is a little bit of an exception and kind of fell into my lap. We'll be going over all of this information in this video. Before we go any further with the video, let's go ahead and take a quick walk around this model. And this model here is the Bantam quarter-ton Jeep trailer. Now I'm not going to go over into a whole lot of detail about the development and the history of this unit because really this was discussed in more detail in the last Jeep trailer video that I recently published. In a nutshell, these were developed shortly after the adaptation of the Jeep itself, again designed by Bantam. And these were a very rugged and very useful utility trailer to be towed behind this vehicle. The design itself was very simplistic, but equally as rugged, and the trailers served all throughout the remainder of the war, and the design itself was still utilized up until very recently, albeit with slightly more tweaked and modernized versions. However, all of those versions can be directly connected in their lineage to this version of the trailers, which were developed again in the late 30s and the early 1940s. These units were very prolific and were copied by a number of different countries as well as also different manufacturers, which goes to show the testament of how successful this design was. Now before we go any further with the video, let's go ahead and take a step back to when this model was first started to get a good idea on what the kit looked like in its raw form. And here's the model at the start of the project. Now for the base starter kit, I'll be utilizing a EastCoastArmory.com World War II pattern Jeep trailer. Now this model here is different from the last video of the Jeep trailer that I recently completed. That video showcases the new ECA Jeep trailer kit, but that kit is 1/6 scale. The unit that we have here is closer to 1/8. Now the reason for this has to do when I developed the CAD files and the STLs for the Jeep trailer. It was originally intended to be a 1/6 scale model kit. When I went ahead and submitted the files to my printer, and by the time they printed out my sample, this was the first unit that I received. Regrettably, there was an error made by the printer, and instead of the unit being printed out in 1/6 scale, it was actually printed out in a scale that I believe is closer to 1/8. After receiving this sample unit here, I went ahead and made the adjustments and ordered the production sample, and that is the unit that is found in the other model showcase video. After that model was completed, I had this unit on hand that I really didn't have any use with, as I'm not into the off scales like 1/10 or 1/8, and so this model here is not really that important for my collection. However, since I already paid to have the unit and it was already in the shop and pre-printed, I might as well do something with it. So I had the idea to just build it as is in a 1/8 scale format. To do that, I went ahead and had to scale down several of the other components that are supplied with the ECA trailer kit so they're in spec with this smaller unit that I have here. Most importantly is that of the tires. Now, the tire and the rim are made with the exact same CAD files that are used on the 1/6 scale counterparts that are found on the ECA catalog. However, the difference between this unit and the others, besides of course being scale, is that on the 1/6 scale production units, the rim and the tire are two separate components that get assembled, and on the production kit, the rim is actually 3D print, and then the tire is actually a cast rubber component. Because I am not going to be offering this unit as a kit or have any plans on working in this smaller scale, there was no point in investing in creating a master and making the molds and the tooling required to make a scale rubber tire for this wheel set in 1/8 scale. So rather than doing that, I just simply went ahead and made the rim and the tire as one integral piece. And this is just going to be painted and weathered as it would be on some small 1/35 scale or 1/16 scale builds for that matter. Now, in order to compare size, here I have the 1/6 scale cast rubber tire. And you can see the difference in just how much smaller this unit is compared to the 1/6 scale counterpart. But again, the detailing is exactly the same, because again, this was made with the exact same CAD file that made the original 1/6 scale unit. All of the hub details are again the same, and if you'll notice I have a small little hole in this section here because this model will be getting the little valve stem, which will be mounted after the units are painted. The valve stems are the 1/6 scale ones. I'm just going to be recycling them on this 1/8 scale version, and for this little bit of detailing here, the size difference is not going to be very noticeable. Moving to the trailer itself, because this model here is using the exact same STL file as the 1/6 scale version, this model here shares all of the exact same detailing as well as functionality that's found on the bigger counterpart. This would of course include the stanchion as well as the lunette eye. Also, with the type of 3D printing that my printer utilizes, this model, just like the 1/6 scale version, has some very nice smooth texturing, which after a few coats of paint will be completely indistinguishable from any other type of medium. And here's the model in its completed form. The build itself went by without any sort of hiccups or issues. The model is a very simplistic build to do. Again, this was by design. By incorporating as many details as possible to be integrally printed, cuts down on the parts needed to be assembled by the builder. Now, because of the smaller size of this unit, the components such as the brake lever and the lunette, on the 1/6 scale version, there are small little pins that are integrally printed in order to assemble these components. However, because of the smaller size of the parts found on this version of the trailer, many of these units were not utilized, and I swapped them out with metal, steel, wire brads, and pins. This is true for the brake. And for the stanchion, I drilled out the main pivot fastener and utilized a real brass bolt in its place. The parts are still fully functional, just as they are on the larger scale counterpart. This would include the spring on the lunette. Of course, we have here the real chains for the safety hooks. And the stanchion can, of course, retract and lock. For this model here, I also scaled down the Jeep plug. All of the same detailing is present on the larger one, just it's in proportions for this smaller unit. Same was also mentioned before on the reflectors that are found on the rear section of the trailer. Another key piece of detailing that was built into this trailer kit's design was the functional drain. If I pull on the bottom, you'll see the component actuating. And I wouldn't be surprised that this is actually just as watertight as it is on the 1/6 scale counterpart that I taped a few months earlier. Moving to the model's wheels, like I said before, the wheels on this model were specifically scaled and printed just for this unit. These are not found on the EastCoastArmory.com product line, but are based off of the CAD files that are used to make the master for the tire, which is rubber casted on the bigger units, and the 1941 Jeep pattern wheel rim. Now, just like on the larger counterpart, the wheels fully spin and actually spin very smooth. Now, like I said before, the tire and rim are all one-piece printing. They are not separate like they are in the bigger units, and all of the weathering and paintwork you see here is just basically that. However, for the application that this trailer is being used for, which is basically shelf display, the printed mediums for this are perfectly suffice. With the unit flipped upside down, here you can see the under chassis detailing. Now again, for anyone who's seen the 1/6 scale counterpart, this is exactly the same. And as much detailing as possible was incorporated into this model. Here you can see the underside of the drainage plug. Note the spring and the lift ring detailing. We have here the power cables for the rear taillights. They run along, of course, the frame and emerge out to the center plug. And we also have the brake cable detailing. Now the cable is the exact same one that I used on the 1/6 scale counterpart, and I did have to slightly enlarge the holes that are found on the brake drums for their receptacles for the cables for obvious reasons, because of the smaller scale of the printings had to be adjusted to fit the larger diameter of the cable and wire. That was a simple conversion, and once done, everything just went on again without any problems. Moving towards the paint and the markings, the model's overall paint and finish, I used a slightly different shade of olive drab compared to the other US AFV models that I've built in the past. Now for the markings, I believe I utilized either 135 or 148 scale water slide decals that were in my spare decal bin. They were simply just used as is and lacquered on without any problems. And here we have the smaller scaled trailer compared to the 1/6 scale counterpart. You can see exactly just how much larger the 1/6 scale unit is in comparison to the first printing that I made. Now when it comes for the actual scale, I believe that the smaller unit here is closer to 1/8 compared to 1/10, which is a pity because there is that 1/10 scale radio-controlled Willys Jeep on the market, but I don't think that this unit here would be in scale. However, if anyone is watching this and believes it is, feel free to put in the comment section listed below, as it would be interesting to iron out exactly what scale is the unit that we have here. Now furthermore, the larger unit is the one that is found on the EastCoastArmory.com product line and is the one that is listed for sale. This smaller unit here, however, is not, since I do not work in this weird off-scale that this unit is printed in. However, if anyone is interested in, for whatever reason, in acquiring one of these smaller trailers here, let me know. I still have the CAD files and I could run off another set just like the one that we have here. And going back to the coloring, you can see exactly how much different the two shades of olive drab are compared to each other. The one found on the larger 1/6 scale pattern of trailer is my standard olive drab that I've been utilizing for a number of years, while the one on the smaller scale counterpart is the slightly different shade that I developed recently. Now a common question that I do get asked is exactly what shade of olive drab and paints do I use when I'm painting these models? And for the answer, it's not something that you can find on the shelf. Both shades of olive drab that you see here are my own custom mix and are something that I have mixed for myself, and there's not something that you could find either online or off of a shelf in a store of some sort. Now for the painting application, this is done via an airbrush, and both units were painted in the exact same manner. One thing I frequently mention in these 3D printed kit videos is that this material paints very, very well. No prep work or any sort of surface additive is needed in order to get the models into their paint. The materials do soak up a little bit of the paint, so it actually has more of a characteristics of painting wood as opposed to painting other sorts of polymers like plastic or resins. So within 2 or 3 coats of very thinned out paint in the airbrush, you'll have the model fully painted and ready for its next step. Also, from my experience, the paint also bonds very well with the surface, and you don't have to worry about things like flake off or even the paint beginning to peel off of this material as it can on some other types of mediums, if not properly pre-prepped. Overall, I'm happy in how the model turned out. It's great to, even though the model was an accident, it turned out to be a happy accident, as even though I don't have any other vehicles in this scale range, it's still made for a nice build and will definitely improve my shelf display. And with that, that wraps up this model showcase video for this 1/8-ish scale World War II Jeep pattern trailer. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the ECA channel where you get kept in the loop of new posted content like this model showcase video, as well as the model project update videos that frequently get posted for ongoing builds. In addition to that, don't forget to swing by the ECA Facebook page where you can keep in the loop of other posted content. And of course, don't forget to swing by eastcoastarmory.com where there are more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds, detailed components, and full 3D printed kits. Thanks for watching.